That's been a big debate for a while now. Huh?
No question.
I just think that if you look at Michael, the body of work he's done over the years, you look at LeBron, the body of work he's done over the years. How many years? 17 now, going to 18. Michael is the greatest player ever. You know, Michael's been injured one time. He never asked to sit out. He never asked for anything, but only he asked for respect and money. And people don't realize when Michael Jordan's playing, I think the first.
Dennis Rodman just snapped on LeBron James, and it all went down live on TV. He stared straight into the camera, paused like he was picking the exact moment to strike, and then dropped it cold. You're a joke to this league. Just like that, the whole basketball world froze mid-scroll. But here's what most people aren't catching right now. This wasn't some random rant from a former player trying to grab attention. This had been building for a long time, simmering under the surface, waiting for the right spark. And that spark, it hit right there on live television, in front of millions watching. Once you hear the full breakdown, every layer of it, the tension, the setup, you're going to see exactly why Rodman said what he said. And real talk, some people might even agree with him when it's all laid out.
I could play in this era, he'll average 50. He averaged 50 points. LeBron's a great talent, no doubt. He's probably one of the top 3 players ever played with Kobe, Magic, Kareem. But Michael's right there. I don't know why you guys discuss the GOAT. Why you discuss the GOAT?
I agree. There's no
debate
close enough. It's not close enough
Right.
between Michael and anyone else to really have the conversation. Let's be honest about it. Stephen A.
Well, listen,
Now picture this, early 2025, a sports panel show, the kind where legends come through, talk their history, share real stories, and remind people what the game used to be. Dennis Rodman walks onto that set looking exactly how you'd expect, calm, confident, completely unbothered, like a man who's already proved everything he ever needed to prove, in every room he steps into. At first, everything's smooth. He's talking about his era, his championships, the intense battles he went through against some of the most physical players the league has ever seen. The host is locked in, the panel's engaged, and the energy feels real, not forced, not fake, just straight basketball talk. Then everything shifts. The host brings up LeBron James. Now, on the surface, that's normal. It's 2025. LeBron's name is always part of the conversation. That's just how it is. But it wasn't just the name, it was how they brought it up. A clip plays, some resurfaced quote from LeBron or someone around him, basically suggesting that players from Rodman's era were products of their time, that today's game has moved past them. And those guys were capable of that kind of tone, like questioning if that era could even hang today, talking about physicality, mental toughness, championships, like they should all be looked at differently now. The panel nods along. The host lets out a small laugh. Someone cracks a quick joke. And just like that, the conversation keeps moving. But Dennis Rodman doesn't move on. If you watch closely, and this clip is starting to spread in places not everyone's looking yet, you'll catch it. His jaw tightens. His eyes shift. That relaxed energy he walked in with, gone. And what replaces it is something way more serious. Something quiet, but intense. Because here's the thing people forget about Rodman. This is not someone who gets shaken easily. This is a man who's been called everything. Crazy, wild, unstable, irrelevant, and he laughed it all off every time. He turned it into his identity, wore it like armor. But this was different. Being told, even indirectly, that everything he built, his legacy, his battles, his championships, doesn't measure up to the standard set by LeBron James, that wasn't something he was about to laugh off. What came next wasn't just a response. It was a full-on detonation. This wasn't noise. This wasn't hype. This was something that had been building. And when it finally came out, it hit hard.
It seems like that, don't it? I just do my job. That's it. You know, I don't care what people say about where you betrayed the Detroit Pistons and the city of Detroit. It's not all about that. It's all about making the right moves and what makes you happy in life. So I had to make the move.
We know how you like challenges. The fact that Charles Barkley says he wants the rebounding title this year, is that affecting you?
No, that's not no fun. I do my job. I get paid to do one thing. That's rebound, kick people's asses. I don't have to go out there and prove a point to nobody in this world. So, hey, Charles, if you want a rebound title, great. We're going to win a championship.
But before we even get to that moment, you've got to understand who Dennis Rodman really is. Because this whole situation only makes sense when you feel the weight behind his name. 5 championships. Say it again. 5. Rodman secured 5 NBA titles across 2 different dynasties, and he did it without being the main scorer, without taking the final shot, without being the face on posters or jerseys kids rushed to buy. He built his legacy doing the work nobody else wanted, the gritty, physical, thankless job of shutting down the most dangerous players on the court. He didn't chase highlights, he erased them. 7 straight seasons leading the league in rebounds. 7. That's not luck, that's not timing. That's pure obsession, discipline, and a level of focus most athletes never even come close to reaching. He went up against players bigger than him, stronger than him, longer than him, and still made their nights miserable every single game. And the wild part, he looked like he enjoyed it. That smile he had out there didn't look normal. It looked like someone who thrived in chaos. Now here's where it gets interesting. Rodman has never been the loud guy in these legacy debates. You don't see him jumping on podcasts every week trying to argue his place in history. He's never chased validation, never begged for recognition. And that's exactly why what happened in early 2025 hits so different, because when someone like that, someone who's been at peace with his career for decades, suddenly decides he can't stay quiet anymore, that means something real got to him, something personal. And this is where the story gets deeper, because Rodman's reaction didn't come out of nowhere. There's been a growing narrative in basketball media for years now, and it's not just Rodman saying this. A lot of former players have hinted at it, some quietly, some out loud. The idea that LeBron James represents the absolute peak of basketball, like everything before him was just a step leading up to him. Now don't get it twisted. Nobody's denying LeBron's greatness. That's not the issue. The issue is what happens when one player becomes the measuring stick for everybody else. Every debate, every comparison, every historical ranking, it all gets filtered through one name. And when that happens, everybody else starts to shrink. 5-time champions get reduced to side notes. The greatest rebounder ever turns into a trivia question. Players who built the league with pure physical sacrifice suddenly get labeled as products of their era, like they were just part of the background instead of the foundation. And whether it's intentional or not, LeBron's circle has added fuel to that perception. Comments get made, interviews drop, social media activity keeps the narrative alive, and piece by piece, it builds this image of LeBron not just as the best of his time, but as the standard for all time. Rodman saw all of it. He watched his name get brought up, not to celebrate him, but to show how far the game has come. And for a long time, he let it slide. He stayed quiet, moved on, didn't react. But silence has a breaking point. By early 2025, he had reached his. Fans were already noticing something was off. Old clips started resurfacing. Posts were spreading with new captions. And the conversation in the comments, it wasn't the usual who's the greatest debate anymore. It got sharper, more direct. One question kept popping up again and again. Does LeBron actually respect the players who came before him? At that point, nobody had a clear answer, but that was about to change in a big way. And here's the twist. Rodman didn't explode right away. He didn't storm off, didn't jump online, didn't start firing off reactions. That's not how he moves. He sat with it, let it build, let it breathe. Then, in a way that felt controlled but still raw, he came back. A follow-up interview in 2025, one that hadn't fully hit the mainstream yet, which is why a lot of people are only now hearing the full story. And when he was asked directly about that clip, about the comments, about the idea that his era didn't measure up to what LeBron represents, everything slowed down. He took a breath, looked straight at the interviewer, and responded with a calm that felt heavier than shouting ever could. LeBron James is a great basketball player. Nobody's arguing that. But when you start sitting up there and letting people talk about legends like we were just warm-up acts for your career, like we didn't build the foundation that he's walking on, that's disrespectful. And I'm not gonna sit here and pretend it's not. You are a joke to this league. If you think championships from my era don't count the same as yours, and just like that, it landed. That line, "You are a joke to this league," hit the internet like a thunderclap. Within hours, clips were everywhere, cut, reposted, slowed down, analyzed from every angle. Sports pages that hadn't even said Rodman's name in years suddenly dropped full breakdowns like this was the biggest moment of the season. Former players got dragged into comment sections and pressed to pick a side. That one sentence turned into a meme, a headline, a full-blown cultural moment in basketball talk. But what really made it hit different wasn't just the anger, it was the pain behind it. Real pain. The kind that builds over years. This is a man who spent his entire career being told he wasn't the main guy, and then had to sit back in retirement and watch even his role get pushed to the side like it didn't matter. And then things got even louder because LeBron's camp said nothing, no response, no statement, no post, nothing. And according to people close to Rodman, that silence made everything worse. One source even said that silence was the loudest answer of all. The thinking was simple. If it wasn't true, somebody would have stepped in and shut it down. Meanwhile, the fans completely split. Within 48 hours of that clip hitting the internet, the basketball world was divided into two clear sides, and it got intense fast. On one side, you had the Rodman supporters, former players, old school fans, people who actually watched those physical, hard-hitting championship runs. They were saying Rodman finally said what a lot of people in the league have been thinking, but never said out loud. That LeBron's legacy, great as it is, has been built in a way that quietly pushes earlier players into the background. That this whole "the game evolved" narrative sometimes feels like a polished way of saying what those players did doesn't fully count anymore. Social media flooded with Rodman clips, him locking down bigger players, grabbing impossible rebounds, breaking down stats, showing impact, showing how much he influenced winning. The message from that side was loud. This man wasn't a product of his era. He was ahead of it. But on the other side, the LeBron defenders came in just as strong. Their argument? Simple. Rodman is bitter. That this is what happens when older players feel like the spotlight moved on without them. They pointed out that LeBron never directly disrespected Rodman, not once. To them, this whole reaction was reading too deep into media talk and turning it personal. And their bottom line? Greatness doesn't need to apologize to anybody. Both sides came with real arguments. And that's what made this moment so explosive. Because the truth, it's not one-sided. Rodman wasn't wrong for feeling disrespected. When you give everything to a sport, your body, your energy, your identity, and turn that into championships, into legacy, that deserves real respect. Not to be brushed off like it was just a stepping stone in someone else's story. But let's be real. LeBron isn't responsible for every single take that media analysts and fans attach to his name. Greatness brings comparison. That's part of the deal, not a crime. The real issue here isn't LeBron, and it isn't Rodman either. It's a culture that only makes room for one name at the top, and in doing that, quietly pushes everyone else down like they never mattered. Now zoom out for a second. Step away from the noise, the viral clips, the hot takes, the comment section battles, and look at what this moment between Dennis Rodman and LeBron James actually shows us. Because it's bigger than just one quote, bigger than one interview. We're living in an era obsessed with the greatest of all time debate, and that obsession comes with a price. It takes real people, players who gave their bodies, their time, their health to this game, and turns them into talking points in someone else's argument. 5 championships get reduced to a stat line. One of the greatest defenders ever gets turned into a personality label in a documentary. Dennis Rodman didn't go viral in early 2025 because he was bitter or stuck in the past. He went viral because he said something out loud that a lot of people, players, fans, even analysts, have been thinking for years but didn't say this clearly. That respect in this league shouldn't be conditional. That what you built shouldn't shrink just because someone else came later and built something different. The players before LeBron didn't just set the stage, they were the stage. And if a 5-time champion, the greatest rebounder in NBA history, a man who has seen and survived more than most people can even imagine, feels like he still has to fight just to be fully respected in 2025, then something is off. Not with Rodman, not with LeBron, but with how the story of basketball is being told. And Rodman, he's not backing down. No apology, no walking it back, nothing. And honestly, that feels right, because some things aren't meant to be softened after the fact. Some things need to be said exactly how they came out. This league was built on the backs of players like Dennis Rodman, and it shouldn't forget that. So here's where it all lands. Dennis Rodman looked into a camera in 2025 and said what he said. Not for headlines, not to trend, not to stay relevant, but because something in him finally snapped. Because there's only so many times a legend can hear his legacy get brushed off before he stops keeping it polite. And whether you stand with Rodman or stand with LeBron, you've got to recognize this conversation is bigger than both of them. It's about how greatness gets treated once the spotlight moves on. It's about whether championships, sacrifice, and everything these players gave actually hold lasting value, or if that value fades the second a newer, louder story takes over. And here's where things get even more intense, because the story didn't stop with that interview. It actually got bigger. After Rodman's words spread everywhere, something shifted across the league. Players, both past and present, started moving a little differently in interviews, a little more careful with how they spoke about history, about respect, about the guys who came before them. You could feel it. That tension didn't disappear. It just went quiet. Some current players were asked directly about Rodman's comments, and you could tell they didn't want to step into that fire. A few gave neutral answers, keeping it safe, saying things like, "Both eras deserve respect," or "It's hard to compare generations." But even in those careful responses, you could hear it. Nobody wanted to dismiss what Rodman said completely, because deep down, they knew he wasn't just talking for himself. And then there were the former players who started speaking up more openly. Not all loud, not all aggressive, but more honest than before. Stories started coming out again about how physical the game used to be, how different the mentality was, how much players had to sacrifice without the same spotlight or protection. It wasn't just nostalgia, it felt like a reminder. And at the same time, LeBron kept doing what LeBron does, playing, leading, building his legacy even further. No direct response, no back and forth, no public reaction to Rodman's words. And that silence, it kept the conversation alive even longer, because now people weren't just debating what Rodman said, they were debating what LeBron didn't say. Was it respect? Was it strategy? Or was it just choosing not to give energy to something that didn't need it? Nobody could fully agree. And that's what made this whole situation stick around way longer than a normal sports moment. Because this wasn't just about stats or rings or highlights. This was about identity, about legacy, about who gets remembered and how. And the truth is, moments like this don't really end. They just become part of the story. Years from now, people are still going to look back at that clip of Rodman, that line, "You are a joke to this league." And they're going to remember exactly how it felt when it first hit. Not just shocking, but uncomfortable, because it forced people to think differently, to question the way greatness is ranked, compared, and talked about. And maybe that's the real impact of all this. Not choosing sides, not proving who's right or wrong, but forcing the conversation to be more real, more balanced, more honest. Because basketball isn't just one era, one player, or one story. It's layers, it's history stacked on history, and every piece of it matters, whether it's loud and flashy or gritty and overlooked. And Rodman, he made sure people didn't forget that. And now, we've reached the part nobody can ignore anymore. What this all really leaves behind. Because after all the clips, all the debates, all the back and forth online, one thing is clear. This moment changed how people are talking about basketball history. Dennis Rodman didn't just go viral, he forced a reset. He made people stop scrolling for a second and really think, how do we measure greatness? Who gets remembered the right way? And who quietly gets pushed to the side when the spotlight moves on? That's not a small thing, because this isn't just about Rodman, and it's not just about LeBron either. It's about every player who put their body on the line, every championship won through pain, every era that built the next one step by step. And whether people agreed with Rodman or not, his words hit because they felt real. No filters, no polish, just straight emotion from someone who's lived it. And moments like that, they stick. They don't fade after a news cycle. They become part of the culture. Now fast forward from here, and this debate isn't going anywhere anytime soon. Every time LeBron's name comes up, every time someone brings up all-time rankings, this moment is going to be sitting right there in the background. Because Rodman didn't just challenge a player, he challenged the entire way people talk about the game. And maybe that's what makes this so powerful. Not the drama, not the headline, but the fact that it forced a deeper conversation that basketball needed to have. So whether you're riding with Rodman, standing with LeBron, or somewhere in the middle, one thing's for sure, you felt this moment. And that's what real sports moments do. They make you react. They make you pick a side, or at least make you question everything you thought you already decided. And just like that, a single sentence turned into one of the most talked about moments in recent basketball history. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think Rodman was speaking facts, or do you think he took it too far? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this debate is far from over. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this with anyone who's been caught up in the GOAT debate lately. There's always more stories like this, more moments people aren't fully breaking down, and you already know we're going to keep bringing them to you. So stay locked in, and I'll catch you on the next one.